Hello and welcome back to Little Bear Games. I'm Josh.
I'm Andy.
And today, Andy, we're going to be discussing probably our favourite gaming mechanic, would you say?
I'd say so, yeah.
And those of you who listened to the last episode, there was a rather unsubtle clue sort of pitched in there midway through by Andy. We're going to be looking at deck building games today. So our kind of top 5 favourite deck builders, in no particular order, I might add, because I think, I'm not speaking on your behalf, Andy, but I think we both tried to do that and just couldn't put them into
there are too many good deck builders that it would be hard to put them in order, to be fair.
Yeah, making this list was difficult enough without them refining it too far. So, would you care to start then? Your first favourite deck building game?
Yeah, I mean, get ready to shuffle your decks and dive into the excitement of deck building with us. I'm going to start us off with a game I mentioned last time, and it's the godfather of deck building, is Dominion. So I won't talk about it too much, but it is the granddaddy of deck builders. And as I say, you have a variety of cards that you can acquire over the course of the game. Build your deck, and you're trying to score victory points. It's really, really simple. It's a timeless classic. It's got multiple expansions. It's probably now not the best deck builder out there, but it's certainly the one that spawned the mechanic, the genre that people, especially us, absolutely love. Every time you're playing it, as I said last episode, variety of cards. You can play a fairly friendly game, or you can introduce the curse and other battle-y games that will make the game a lot more interesting. I haven't played the expansions much in it, as I say, because there are other deck builders now that I really get into that are way more interesting. Dominion had to be on my list. It's got me into loving board games and especially deck building. I don't think there's anything else for me to say if you listen to the last episode.
See, I think it's interesting you say it's, probably not the best. I think it depends on your definition of the best.
Yes.
I kind of think in its purest, rawest form, it probably is the best deck builder in terms of introducing those mechanics of, you've all got the same kind of star sync cards. You've got some stuff that earns you money, some that I can't sure. I think it's just cards and it's victory points and money, isn't it?
Yeah, so the money so that you can buy from the market. So you're buying from the marketplace to add more cards to your deck and rinse and repeat, build an engine. And as I say, if you play with somebody who's good at the game, their turn will last a lot longer than yours and they'll be scoring points. It's high on my list. It's why it's in my top 5. It's just no longer my favourite.
Okay, and it's interesting you mentioned the expansions because there's an absolute cornucopia of
isn't there just
expansions for Dominion, and I've got and played one of them, which is the Dark Ages expansion.
Yeah,
and that's quite good. It's quite grim, as you'd expect with the name. I know I've only played it a couple of times, but there is some quite cool stuff. You've got knights in there who can start out squires who are cheap, and then they kind of get trained up as knights and do more stuff.
Okay, that's quite a cool mechanic.
You've got the rats as well, so there's kind of proactive strategies with the rats where you can take rats on into your deck that kind of clog them, and you can do more cool stuff that way. But I know there's also ways to kind of be a bit more offensive with them, and there's some really nasty thieving cards in Dark Ages where you can steal high value gold cards.
Nice.
Or gold or silver cards from your opponents and stuff. There's some real mean stuff in there, but it is quite cool.
Is it the intrigue one that I see quite a lot? I mean, they're in the high demand, aren't they? They're I think when I've gone to look at buying an expansion in the past, the ones I've wanted have not been available. So I don't know if they're just out of print at the moment or just that popular that they don't seem to be in stock whenever I go to buy them. But because there are other deck builders that I enjoy playing, it's not one I pick up that often, unless I'm playing with somebody new and that person hasn't played a deck builder before, then it's certainly one that I'd kind of introduce them to, because it's just one that you can play easily without having. I guess another reason why I like it so much is it's one of those games that you can memorize the rules very, very easily. It's not one that you haven't played in a while. I'm going to have to pull the rule book out and do that dreaded thing of reading from the rule book to people, or, trying your best to explain how to play the game and then missing the rules and making something up like free parking and you collect the money. So it's why I can turn to it time and time again. It's just, like I say, there are other games I'd rather pick up and play deck buildy wise. What's the first on your list, Josh?
So I think My list has got a mixture of kind of pure quote unquote deck builders and ones that have some other mechanics kind of sprinkled into them. I think I'll start with 2 pure kind of deck builders and then go into the more sort of diluted ones. The first one I've got, and shout out to the girls up in Scotland who I think saw the Hogwarts Express the other day, but is Harry Potter.
They did.
They did, didn't
Yeah,
they?
yeah, great photo.
Is Harry Potter the deck building game.
Nice.
Now, it's quite a surprising one for me because I like Harry Potter, but I'm not a avid kind of fan and I'm not a fanatic over it. The Harry Potter deck building game is so good. It's essentially a co-op game where you play as Harry or Ron or Hermione or Neville, and you've got very slightly different starting decks. So Neville's a little bit better at healing, Ron's good at dealing damage, Harry's kind of a bit more jack of all trades, and Hermione's good at learning spells. And it works a little bit like the Legendary games, and I'm not sure if you're going to have one of those on your list, but I was very close between this and Alien Legendary in terms of your end game is to kind of beat the bad guy, and you get a turn where you're buying cards from a market and you're playing cards, and then the bad guy gets their go and they're doing damage to you. And it's essentially if your entire team gets knocked out and you lose, if you beat the bad guy, you win. And it's got a really nice kind of campaign style format because you can start at the Philosopher's Stone and the bad guy is Professor Quirrell and all this sort of stuff. And it's really easy and very basic and there's not a lot to do. And as you progress through the years, they add more mechanics in. So you get to the Goblet of Fire and I mean, very, very mild spoilers in that sense. But, well, you know what, in fact, I'm not going to mention it just in case people pick up the game and want to play
That's
it.
fair.
But they start introducing new components to the game, new mechanics, new things to do, new opportunities to do damage or buy new cards to the market itself. So you get more and more as you go. And in the rule book, it says if you're kind of more of an experienced board gamer and deck builder, then you can kind of start the Prisoner of Azkaban the 3rd year, and that's a good place to begin. Okay. And the first 2 years are kind of more of a tutorial stage.
To the game.
But Jazz and I played through it co-op. I think I was Neville for most of it, and she was Ron, and then I switched to Hermione later on, and that worked really nicely. And yeah, we had a great time, and I think actually I'd recommend people play it from the very start. And it just adds to that nice experience. And it was something we didn't play for kind of hours and hours and hours at a time. We'd kind of do a year and then we'd play it again a week or 2 later. And it was really nice and easy to pick up and play from where you left off because everything's really well organized in the box into different sections and has its own place. And some of the villains you get in there are absolutely gross to deal with. Your threat assessment has to be very on point to do well in that game. Okay. The 2 I'd say the standouts, Bellatrix Lestrange and Lucius Malfoy. Okay. Just get rid of them. The second they come out of the kind of bad guy deck, they have to go because it just gets absolutely ridiculous if you don't. I love the game. I can take or leave Harry Potter as a theme, but there was something nice about seeing familiar characters and doing that. And something that is nice as well is your character cards change. Okay. So once you get to whatever it is, like the Order of the Phoenix, year 5, you go from like being the little kids on the cards, you flip them over and you've got the older ones and you can do more stuff. And you end up getting a kind of class-based system involved, which is quite cool and adds some variables to things you do and what you're focusing on. And yeah, and you get to that kind of final battle in the very last year, and it is mad. It's quite a nice progression because it's all of these different things I've learned through all of the years and the different mechanics and who to focus on and who to leave alone and all this stuff. It all comes full circle, so you put it all together and it's great fun.
But it pays off well.
Yeah, and I've only played it as a 2-player thing, and it worked nicely. And what I liked about it was Jazz and I didn't have to play 2 characters each. I like co-op games where you don't have to fill in for missing people.
Okay.
And yeah, we had a great time. And although I've not played it since we've completed the campaign, it's something I'd probably go back to. And it'd be interesting to see how it did work as a 4-player game, because it does have that legendary element to it where the more players you have, then the bad guy's activating more times.
More frequently.
So it probably gets a bit harder. off the top of my head, I don't think Jazz and I failed any of the years.
Okay.
So that is one critique, I suppose.
Yes. With other legendary games, they've been harder, I feel.
Well, the
ones I've played.
The Legendary series, like, some of them are real, like, beat you down kind of thing. Whereas this, we sort of coasted through. I'm sure there's ways to make the game harder, and there might even be stuff in the rulebook, but we definitely just stuck to whatever the kind of normal system was. But yeah, I really recommend it. I think it's a cool game. I know there's a couple of expansions for it. I think there's a Fantastic Beasts one, and there's another one all to do with potions as Snape's the ultimate Chad.
That's cool.
I might pick that up at some point as well.
Definitely.
Yeah, is that, I mean, in terms of Harry Potter, is that something you'd check out?
Yeah, I'm a Harry Potter fan. I mean, not as much as your lovely wife. I wouldn't be able to name all the characters or anything like that, but it's certainly a theme that I am drawn to. There are other themes that I enjoy more, but you can. I don't know what it is. It's just something about being able to relate with the character because you've read the book, you've watched the movie. And it's cool taking on those roles and battling the demons that, it's something quite cool about that. So, yeah, it's definitely one I'll play with you next time you fancy a co-op deck building game.
Nice. What's your next one?
My second choice for deck building game isn't one that I get to play often enough, but it's actually, for me personally, highly rated. And I wonder if you'll guess what it is, but it's Moonrakers, mate. It's Moonrakers. I just remember seeing it advertised on YouTube and fell in love with the game and then immediately went and pre-ordered it. I can't remember if it was a Kickstarter or not. It might not have been. For those of you that don't know, Moonrakers is a deck building game with an element of negotiation. It's you embark on an interstellar journey with the Moonrakers, a community that have built a society or live on the moon, and they're looking for a new leader. And you are one of five. I believe it's five player game. We've never played it at 5 player. I think the max we played it is 4. And the person that can get to the most negotiate, I think it's 10 prestige points, becomes the leader of the Moonrakers essentially. And it's just such a fun game because it smashes 2 elements together I like really well. Deck building, obviously, and that negotiation and alliance building. So you're working together to complete missions throughout the game, building your deck, making your spacecraft better by adding parts to it, making it more interesting, so that you can ultimately complete harder missions by yourself if possible, so that you can gain those prestige points. When you complete a mission, you're earning things like prestige points, and it might be 1, maybe 2, depending on the hardness of the mission that you're undertaking. You'll earn coins, and I have to say, I paid for the premium upgrade. I think you get metal coins in the base game anyway, and metal coins just make a game perfect. I'm sure I'm preaching to a lot of you that agree with me, but I upgraded the little spaceships that you get as well, and they're weighted. They're absolutely fantastic. But as I say, you get coins, and after you complete the mission, if people have helped you to take that mission on, you can split the reward, and that might be the prestige points, the pilots that you might get to add to your deck. When you're completing this mission, you're doing them with cards like energy and shooting. And the other thing you can do is, if you so choose to, you can tell somebody you want to help them out, and then you can just choose not to. You can not partake, not play the right cards intentionally. You might want to keep that a secret and just say, "Oh, I didn't draw the cards that you needed me to," and they fail that mission. But then none of you get anything, and then obviously that relationship is broken down, right? You might not want to work with them again, but you might have to. You might have not have a choice. So yeah, it's high on my list. I love the theme and anything space related. For me, there's strategic depth to it. It's a balance of risk and reward, with the forming of alliances and outsmarting your opponents when you need to. It's a great game, and as I say, the component you get a map with the game that the cards fit on, and you can upgrade that, which I did, and it makes the whole game for me feel a lot more premium and a lot more enjoyable to get out every time. I know you've played it once with us.
One time.
Yeah, you played it one time. What were your thoughts on a deck builder?
Oh, it's It's a bit of a sore spot.
Yeah, is it? Yeah.
Well, I loved the game. I thought it was really good. I liked the kind of mixture of deck building and a little bit cosmic encountery in terms of you can be quite loose with your negotiations, what you're offering, what you're doing and stuff. But I just remember Jazz being very far ahead when we played it, and I was really horrible. And I think she tried to exclude me from a deal that was going on. And then I said, oh no, I'm the only one who can help you. I've got these cards in my deck. And you guys had all backed out. And then she relied on me to complete some particularly big contract. And then I just bailed and was like, no, I'm not doing that. And it was
a bit of a sour moment.
Oh, it went beyond the game. That was like going to bed in the evening and her going, I can't believe you did that.
Okay. It was one of those. It was almost a Spirit Island moment all over again.
That was a lot worse.
That's interesting. It's probably why you've not come over and go, right, well, let's play some Moonrakers then, which is a bit of a shame. But maybe we need to draw it out and be a bit more friendly next time.
It was a very cool game. I'd definitely be up for playing that again.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, I look forward to playing that again. What's number 3 on your list, chap?
3? No, number 2 for me.
Oh, number 2. Sorry, apologies. Apologies.
Running me through it. Number 2 for me is Imperium Classics.
Nice.
So those of you who know me, and I've alluded to this already in previous episodes, I'm a kind of classicist by trade. My background's all ancient history, the ancient world, all that sort of stuff. And this game is me in a box. It's the Carthaginians versus the Romans, the Greeks versus Scythians, all that sort of stuff, with deck building thrown in. And I think it's a great game. I think it caught me off guard to start with because it's a little bit heavier than I thought it was going to be, because there's quite a lot of stuff to think about in terms of it's not necessarily the most straightforward deck builder. I'd still class it as a pure deck builder in terms of you're buying stuff from a market and you're kind of building. I suppose maybe it's a bit unfair to say it's pure deck builder because it's got that civilization element thrown in where you've got your stack of kind of empire cards that you build towards guessing, and you go from being a barbarian race to an empire itself, and you get more advanced as you go. It is a bit tricky because you can't always just take cards from the middle. Sometimes you have to pick up kind of revolt cards, which clog your deck up and aren't very good. But then sometimes you can pay extra resources in order to pick up cards and not pick up bad ones. So it is a little bit more intricate than, say, sort of Harry Potter or Dominion. But it is great. It's a real nice balancing act. The asymmetry is really, really cool. So there's some societies like the Vikings who don't have kind of empire decks. They just stay as sort of barbarians, but then have different win conditions. And there are multiple ways to win the game. There's, societies can break apart and fall apart because they get too many of the bad cards. And then it's just kind of whoever's got the least wins. You can end up becoming like the King of Kings and getting the most points that way. There's loads of ways to end the game. And you're counting up points on your board, in your deck, in your hand, all this sort of stuff. So it's a really diverse game. I love the theme. I feel like the cultures represented in the cards play quite thematically in terms of like the Celts and Vikings are all about messing you up and they're aggressive. Yeah. So if you're playing for your first time 2-player with someone who's not played a huge amount, I'd probably tend to avoid those. I mean, it's not to say you're not going to win, because I think one of the first times I played Albie, and he was the Celts and I was the Greeks. Okay. And I managed to win because he was just trying to kind of hammer me for most of it. And I was able to kind of build up more points than he was able to take away. A bit like Dominion with the Witch. Yeah. You know, law of diminishing returns with the Witch at a certain point. But then other societies, like Persians, are pretty horrible. They have loads of tributary cards, which are effectively enslaved peoples. So they go out and kind of do what they did historically and kind of take over other places. You've got the Romans.
I was going to say the Romans is who I played, and I remember enjoying the games.
Yeah, who like build up a big society, quite militaristic. Carthaginians, I really like. They're really cool, where they're about building up lots and lots of materials, which is a resource in the game. And historically, Carthage was like one of the biggest marine, it was a thalassocracy is the kind of main word for it. It was like an ocean empire. Okay. And they were known for being like big traders, like the Scythians, who are more nomadic. They get lots of points from having lots of landscape cards, so lots of regions, and having lots of locations on to kind of move around in their civilization tableau. And yeah, I think it's a really cool game. It's one I don't play as much as I should, and the solo mode's really good on it as well. Like I've played that a few times, and it works really nicely. As it's published by Osprey Games, who do a lot of games with very, very good solo kind of options. And yeah, I really enjoy it. Theme's great, the gameplay's great, there's lots of variety, no two games are the same. And I know, I'm sure you'll speak about in a moment, you own the Legends version of it, which takes on the more kind of mythological aspect of it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I enjoyed playing the game so much with you. You and I talked about it, and I had some credit at a store, and I thought, well, we'll add that to our list, but we haven't got around to playing it yet. So I look forward to doing that. Yeah,
that'd be really good. And I know they've been really cool, actually. They've just released Imperium Horizons.
Okay.
I think it's just come out, or it's coming out. It's like on pre-order. But that looks really interesting. So what they've kind of done is picked out a load of very marginalised niche kind of cultures from history, and they've included those in Horizons. So off the top of my head, you've got things like I can't remember the exact society off the top of my head, but kind of like ancient Polynesian societies. I think you've got kind of feudal Japan in there potentially, and a couple of, but essentially ones that tend to get overlooked in these sorts of games. Okay. And yeah, it looks really, really interesting. So it's something I'm 100% going to check out.
I love that you love the game and that you're nerding out on the classic side of it. You can really hear it. It's cool, and it's enjoyable to see when we play the game and hear it now from you. So yeah, thank you for that. So now we're on to number 3. And my number 3 is Quest for El Dorado, which again I think is a game that we have mentioned previously. It's a deck building racing game. And it's great. You play a little adventurer explorer meeple racing across the jungle or rivers or whatever it is, and you're racing to discover the legendary city of gold. And this is one of the games that when I first played, and in fact now when I still play, I tend to lose. I don't think I've ever won this game, but I just enjoy playing it. It's great. Buying cards from the market and trying to plan ahead. Okay, so I need to cross that river there, or I need to cut through that bit of jungle there. So I need to pick up, the machete card to get through the jungle, or the captain card so I can get over the river. It's great, and a bit luck of the drawy, I guess, in terms of what you actually pull out your deck, like with any deck builder. If you get the right cards, it feels great. If you as I say, if you get more of a foot than a hand when you pull your cards, it can be disappointing, and you're falling well behind. Yeah, so you sort of overcoming these obstacles, and as I say, trying to get to the City of Gold. And what's great about it is the board format is hex, I believe, and you can build your run, your track, however you want to call it, in many different ways. They give you suggestions, but you can ultimately you can build it how you like, can't you? And you score points for getting over different parts of the board soon another in case there's a draw. Yeah, the gameplay's different every time, especially if you're playing the different boards. I think you've got the expansion.
Yeah, and actually I'm going to jump in here because my number 3 is Quest for El Dorado.
Is it really? Oh, okay. Well, we might as well combine the two. I thought you were going to mention the fact that your copy's in German. I mean, the words aren't actually written on the cards. It doesn't matter. But isn't your copy German?
No, I think that's the standard.
Is it the standard? Right, okay.
I mean, it's by my favourite man in the world ever, Rainer Knizia.
Yes.
So, it's all duplicated. Yeah, it was German and English. Okay. And then the cards, you got German cards and English
It's just funny. I remember because you, again, introduced me to this game. We played it. I loved it. And I just remember bits of it being in German. I'm just thinking, did Josh get a German copy of this because he loved it so much? And I immediately went home and bought it that day to my partner's because she hates it when I buy a game that you already own or somebody else already owns. It's, well, we can just play it with them. It's like, well, what happens if I want to play it? I don't want to go and although it would be perfectly fine to ask you to buy a copy of a game or vice versa. Yeah, Quest for El Dorado is a fun game, even though I lose at it time and time again.
Well, I think that's very telling because I'm very similar. I think I've won a couple of games and we've played countless. And I still love it. It's still one I'll definitely play. Like you say, the kind of modular hexagonal board makes it very interesting because the game comes with preset board suggestions for you.
Yeah.
You can just ignore that and make your own. And what you were alluding to a second ago with the expansion, it's really interesting. There's a couple of expansions for Quest for El Dorado. There's the Heroes and Hexes one, which I don't have, and I've not played. I don't think you have.
No,
either.
no, I've not played.
No, and I'm not 100% sure on the nature of that expansion, apart from it adding more. But then the one I do have is the Golden Temple,
yes.
which is a sequel / expansion / sort of standalone game. And what I find so cool about that is you can just play with that box, or you can combine it with the first
original
one.
Nice.
And so it adds a ton of more cards. It adds more board options, and also adds in that new, what's the word for it? I suppose criteria or obstacle to get past.
Yeah.
So in the base game, you've got like machete for jungles, gold for villages, and paddles for water. But then in the Golden Temple, it adds in knowledge for kind of secret caves and bits and bobs.
Yeah.
And I like the end game more for Golden Temple, actually, because my only thing is with El Dorado, the base game, is it's normally quite close, but you can occasionally have a game, in terms of it being a race to a finish line, where someone's miles ahead and no one's going to catch them.
Yeah.
And that's a fault of all race games in that respect, is the fact that once someone's very far ahead, it's
disheartening for anybody else playing.
Yeah, and I suppose there's a natural catch-up mechanic built in there in terms of the luck of the draw, because that person could be very close to reaching El Dorado and then not draw what they need. And the other people could. But unless you've got something that's really streamlined, like the catch-up mechanic in, say, Flamme Rouge, it can be quite hard to do that. Whereas what I like about the Golden Temple is you've got the 3 different temples, all with a different coloured jewel, and you have to get one of each and then get back to the start.
That's right.
So although you've still got that race getting back to the start, which can play out with someone being miles ahead, it just feels slightly different and less linear. The fact that you could go left and focus on the rubies, I could go right and go for the emerald.
I was about to add that.
Jazz or Jody could go down the middle and look for the sapphire.
Yeah.
And we then are in an interesting place, because rather than you and I going really hard together on getting ship captains or boats or whatever, because we know there's a big stretch of river to go down the most efficient route to get to El Dorado in the base game, here, you could have loads of jungle going left and your deck could be full of machetes.
Yeah.
I could have loads of rivers going right and my deck's filled with like oars and boats and stuff. And then Jazz and Jody going down the middle might have loads of villages and caves, so they have loads of torches and gold in theirs. And then you kind of have to adapt your deck later and plan
the other way.
And I think it's quite,
because there are limited. There are about four or five cards of each type, aren't there? And you're bringing them down from the exclusive market when you need to fill a gap. So you're right. You do need to plan ahead. And the other not more interesting thing, but the other interesting thing about the expansion is that I found in the first in the original game, you can get in each other's way. So you can literally block a player. Whereas if you split your distances and you know one's going left, one's going right, then you tend to cross paths less often, which can be interesting because it's frustrating when you need to move. You've got the cards that you want, but now somebody's blocking the square that you had planned in your head that you were going to take. So you don't need that river card. You need a jungle card that you haven't drawn. So that can get frustrating. But yeah, such a fun game, and memories come back to times of COVID before we discovered Board Game Arena online. This was one that you and I, because we both had a copy of the game, were able to video call each other. And the four of us played Quest for El Dorado. You had the board set up exactly the same way we did, and we would move all four meeple so we knew way. And it was just fun to play, even though we only did that the once. It's a great memory. It's a great memory to have of a board game night, of trying to still play board games when we can actually be together. It played well to that, both having a copy of the game and the game itself. So yeah, that's Quest for El Dorado, and that happens to be both of our number 3s. So do you want to start off with our number 4?
Yeah, sure. I will stay on the theme of jungle explorations and that sort of stuff.
Oh, I'm wondering where you're going with this.
So I'm going to go with Lost Ruins of Arnak.
Oh.
For my next one.
Oh, I love this game.
Yeah, I know
Yes,
you do. Yeah. I don't think you did first time. I was surprised it didn't come up last episode.
I thought about putting it on the last episode. Yeah, I think I've got so much love for that game now. I want to play it lots that I completely forgot that I didn't enjoy it when I first played it. And that probably just came down to the fact that I was terrible at it. But yeah, go on. Lost Ruins of Arnak.
Yeah, so very similar theme to El Dorado. You're going to this island called Arnak, and you're trying to essentially be the best explorer possible. And there's multiple ways to do that. There's a research track you can climb up, and you sort of gain knowledge and benefits from climbing that, victory points for the end of the game. You can also go out and explore the island, taking cars, boats, airplanes, out to different sites. And when you get to these sites, a guardian appears, which is like a big giant monster of some sort. And then you have to beat them, and you gain points from defeating them. And all the way through doing this, you're building your deck, which allows you from two types of cards, actually. You've got kind of equipment or item cards, things like rope that might give you an extra card each turn or an extra movement or something. And then you've got artifacts, which are really cool. They're more powerful, but they come at a cost in terms of when you buy them, they activate immediately. But then they go into your deck, and then you have to pay a tablet, which is kind of like a little resource in game the next time you want to play them. And yeah, I absolutely love it. It's a really intriguing mixture of deck building and worker placement. Each player's got 2 workers and place them out on the different sites they want to go to. And it works like a typical worker placement game in that sense. Place your meeple, get the thing that it's been placed on. And then the cards add just a lot more variety to that as well. And as I say, a research track's interesting. You've got your notebook and your magnifying glass. And your magnifying glass has to always be above your notebook or level with it. The notebook can never go above that. Thematically, you're discovering stuff and writing it down. And yeah, I just think it's a really intriguing game. I'm quite biased on this one because I've never lost a game of it yet, so that's probably.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a thing. Yeah. Oh Jesus! I want to play it now just so I can try and beat you.
So I'm retiring from Lost Ruins of Arnak. It's the same.
He's hanging off his coat.
It's the same reason I've not played my favourite game, Terra Mystica, for years.
Right. Okay.
Because I've played a lot of that and I've never lost. I don't want to.
Fine. Well, I think last time we played Lost Ruins of Arnak, I had to dip out, so I didn't end up finishing the game, which is a bit rubbish. But I think I was actually on track to beating you that game. So you're lucky. You're lucky I dipped out. Just saying.
I don't think you were.
No, you're right. I'm terrible. I'm terrible at board games. I've come to realise this.
Well, weird. It was interesting, that one as well, because that was my first time introducing the expansion.
That's right.
Oh, and it's terrible. I think it's a Lost Expedition, but they've done a new expansion just recently, and I can't remember if that's the name of the new one. The one I've got is the one that everyone says you should. It's one of those you should buy it because it makes the game better expansions, and it adds in variable player boards. So you have different explorers who you play as rather than being the same.
Okay,
and they all have different.
They've got different hours. That's right.
And my guy was absolutely sick. He was the sort of academic archaeologist guy who I liked anyway. And his whole thing was buying artifacts. So I ended up with these crazy powerful cards and doing really well off that. And I mean, there's some other really cool new explorers in it. Like there's a lady with the hawk, and the hawk can do various things. And there was one of us, I can't remember who, had the guy who you get an extra worker, so you're 3 instead of 2.
That might have been me. Oh, maybe it was Jasmine.
You were something, weren't you something to do with food or something weird?
I can't remember. Yeah.
So the only difficulty I found with that expansion was I came away from playing that game where I was getting really excited about how I did. And then I think it might have been Jodie or Jazz made a comment about the character I was playing being slightly overpowered. And I'm quite intrigued to play it with those characters again as someone else, because that is something that does bother me. And I don't like in those sorts of games where you do have one
role.
When we were talking previously about Tapestry in a previous episode, I was a bit annoyed when I got those diviners or oracles or whatever they were. Who were a bit useless compared to everyone else. And it'd be just interesting to see that from the other side and kind of work out whether, Josh just had a really solid game or whether there is a bit of imbalance there. But despite that, and removing the kind of expansion from it, like I love the game. I think it's a weirdly easy way to lose a number of hours. Like you sit there and you play a couple of turns and then you're like, whoa, where did those...
Yeah.
But
I think that's down to the enjoyment of the game, though. You know, it is fun. You can get lost in it, and the time does fly by.
In the ruins of Arnak.
In the ruins of Arnak. It's one that when to appease my partner, when I played that with you, rather than going and immediately buying it, I discovered Board Game Arena by this time, and it's one that's on Board Game Arena. And I started playing against people online and realized how terrible I am. I mean, you play, you know, if you don't set it so that you're playing against people that are of a similar skill to you, you are just getting your ass whooped at board games. There are people that dedicate their time to it, and I wish I was that good at board games. JD seems to be exceptionally lucky / skillful / all of the above. She wins board games all the time and is very competitive. The stories I could go into now, but I'll leave that for another episode. And Lost Ruins of Arnak, great game. My number 4 that I'm going to mention, you have already mentioned. It's a legendary game, Legendary Encounters, an alien deck building game. I loved this game. And again, was one that I went out and immediately purchased when I played this for the first time. In Legendary Encounters, you're taking on roles of characters from the Alien universe, including, I can't remember the cat's name, Jonesy, including the cat. The cat's in there. I love the Aliens franchise, so that, you know, just the theme itself. So going back to Harry Potter, I know that you weren't massive, but enjoyed it. I love Alien, and that's another reason why I absolutely love this game. So it's very similar to Harry Potter, a co-op game. Players are building their decks to confront various challenges, hostile aliens, corporate agendas from Wayland. Just fun, and one that I've not played enough and haven't actually beaten. I may have beaten the beginner phase, but I haven't moved beyond that. The face huggers are difficult to deal with. The queen alien is difficult to deal with in that game, and it's just nice when you're turning over cards and seeing characters. Fans of the Alien franchise will just absolutely, you know, love that you'll see your favorite characters in this.
I think it's an interesting one, Legendary Alien or Aliens. It's definitely up there for me, and it didn't quite make my list just because I've not played it in ages.
Yeah.
And I think part of the problem for me was that I played it so much, all the cards end up really mishmashed.
Okay. And
I've just been too lazy to go back and sort through them. But it's definitely a game I'd go back to. And one of the things I really liked was doing stuff on your friends' turns.
Yes.
So you could essentially build a kind of support archetype in amongst your group, and you could be the person who... You don't really do much on your turn, but you can support your friends during theirs and give them more money or more attack or draw more cards.
Yes.
And that was really cool. That was like a really nice sort of way to play it. But you're right. Thematically, it's really cool. Face huggers and then getting a chest burster in your deck. When you draw it, you die. But I think the difficulty is a big hitter on that because it is fantastic solo. It's one of the best solo games I've ever played, and I've played it a lot on my own, as well as with you guys, and I still stand by it. I've never completed it fully, but I've done Aliens, and Alien 3, those campaigns in it, and Alien is so difficult, that first one.
Yeah.
I think I've beaten it once and played it loads.
I think the first time you and I tried it, I think we took 2 or 3 attempts and still didn't beat it.
Yeah, whereas Aliens and Alien 3, I beat first time. And then Resurrection, that seems like the hardest. That is ridiculous. Did you ever play for Resurrection?
I didn't get that far with it. I played a lot of it. So again, I went and purchased the game, and then I played a lot of it online. Actually, it's not on Board Game Arena, but I did Tabletop Simulator with a friend, and we found it so difficult. Enjoyable, massively enjoyable. So we struggled to beat it. So I need to go back to it and actually beat the game. So maybe this is an excuse to play this later today if I can convince you.
Well, I'd definitely be down for it. I loved it. Yeah, I mean, you do just get some absurd difficulty curves. Like it's like a rogue android in the first one that's really difficult.
Yeah. Bishop.
No, it'd be Ash.
It was Ash. It was not. Yeah, you're right.
R.I.P. Bilbo Baggins.
Yes.
But the thing is with Resurrection was the newborn, the kind of human alien hybrid in that. It's it's not a spoiler in terms of if you're a fan of aliens, but like final boss in that sense. And it did something which I've not really seen in many co-op deck builders, which was just horrendous. What it did was it wiped the card market every turn. So your deck has to be perfect by the time it gets drawn. Because if it's not, you can't deal with it. Because you can't adapt or change your plan. You're basically stuck with what you've got when it comes out. And it's just so hard to deal with, even if it comes out quite late. But yeah, it's we could talk about this for hours. It's an awesome game. And there's the expansions as well.
Yes.
Which I don't think we've played together, but you've got the kind of Alien Queen thing which is so cool because one of you plays as the Alien Queen and you've got a separate deck of alien cards. You're the one who's picking what's coming out and attacking the players.
Yeah.
And you've got the whole hidden role social deduction element where one of you can be like a Weyland-Yutani agent and you win if all of the players die. So you'll start making rubbish plays or buying rubbish or like buying the best cards and not playing them and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's such a good game. And to be fair, I probably should wrap up my number 5 into my number 4 as well. Sci-fi theme is Star Realms. It's a sci-fi universe deck building game where players command fleets, bases, and try and defeat other people's bases. 40 life points, I think you get, if I remember rightly.
I think it's quite variable. You can kind of make it longer, shorter.
And it's only a 20-minute or 30-minute game, if I remember rightly. Quick turns, straightforward mechanics. That's perfect to sort of pull out as a quick deck building game. You're building powerful cards, sort of synergies and combos. Yeah, and it's a nice, because I've mentioned a few co-op games, it's a nice head-to-head game that you can play against your friends. It's not one that I actually own, because again, I probably would have gone out and purchased it after I played it for the first time, but it's one that both you and Albie own, I believe. So it's one that I can play quite often. Yeah, there are different races, if I remember rightly. You can play different. It's the card symbols, so you synergize the cards so that they become more powerful, essentially, don't they?
Yeah, you've got green, which is like the blob, yellow's the Empire, blue is some sort of trade alliance.
You've got such a better memory than I have when it comes to board games.
And red's a machine cult, and you can synergize them and they all do different stuff. Like blue's got life gain, red's good for thinning your deck, green's like raw damage, and yellow's Albie's favourite because he's horrible.
Yes.
And it like makes you discard cards and that sort of stuff.
Red in Magic. He's more red, isn't he, than blue? He's blue also.
Oh, he's whatever most horrible. He's whatever the horrible one is.
Yeah, at the time. So you have bases and they can defend you from being attacked, right, directly, so you're not losing life points. It's essentially taunt if, they're taking damage from you. Yeah, it's just it's a quick, deck building game, like I alluded to with Dominion. One that you don't really need to have to read the rulebook time and time again. Once you've learnt the game, it kind of sticks in your mind and you can just introduce people to very, very quickly. It's one that I will purchase and will end up in my collection at some point, but just not one that I need right now because I have you and Albie to lean on when I need to play that.
I mean, I think Albie's got or at the very least backed the big.
I was going to mention the
big
Kickstarter.
Box. It's got everything, like every expansion they've ever done.
Yeah.
And there's some cool stuff in there that I've not played. Like there's a sort of commander element where you get a slightly different starting deck and things to build your deck towards. Yeah. And I think there's a co-op element.
Is there? Okay.
That's why I prefer Hero Realms.
Okay.
Beyond being a fantasy over sci-fi.
I was going to say
anyway.
You're more the fantasy over sci-fi.
But that's had a co-op campaign almost immediately. And I think they've brought one out of Star Realms now. So I'd definitely like to check that out as well.
Cool. What's your number 4 on the list?
It's number 5 for me now.
Is it number 5 for
Yeah,
you?
we're losing track. Sorry. Yeah, so it's my last one. So I'm going to go for... See, it's hard because it's kind of a series, but I've only really played one a few times. And I've played another one once, but the Undaunted series.
Okay.
So I really like Undaunted. It's a World War II sort of war game / deck builder. And instead of having miniatures or anything like that, you have these little discs that represent different units and soldiers, and you move them around on a modular grid and have to achieve different objectives. And it's a very standard war game in that respect. You move, you shoot, you can mortar people, you can snipe and hide and scout and all this sort of stuff. But the deck building mechanics are really cool because they allow you to adapt and change what you're able to do and what you want to do on the battlefield. So if your opponent's got a load of machine guns lined up and they're giving you trouble, then on a turn where you can recruit more cards, you're probably going to want to get some mortars. So then you can sort of take those out. Or, if your opponent's infantry is getting too up in your face, bring a tank in and that sort of stuff. Yeah. And I've got all of them except for Stalingrad, which I understand Stalingrad's supposed to be incredible, but it's just frankly the most expensive one. And I've not played the others enough to warrant it. I'm really keen to give Battle of Britain a go. I think the plane side of it, like the sort of aerial warfare, will be really interesting. But I've played mostly Normandy and North Africa, and the reinforcements kind of expansion added into Normandy as well. So you've got the tanks included. But Normandy's great. It's really good fun. It's quite thematic. I quite often play the Axis in it just because I hate losing. So if I'm going to lose, I might as well feel good about the fact I'm the bad guys.
Yes.
And it's cool. It's asymmetrical. You've got different units on both sides, different objectives. And I don't know. I think there's something, the production of it's really nice. You've got campaign booklets. You can keep track of kind of who's won what. And it gives you a little kind of, albeit basic narrative at the end in terms of who won and what the difference is. And there's a really nice feature because each card's got like an actual name on it. And I believe, I may have this wrong, but I believe some of those people have particular relevance to the designers themselves. Okay. Like some of the names might have been granddads or great uncles or whatever who were in the war. And it's a really nice touch in that campaign book because you can kind of award medals to the cards who you felt were kind of like your MVP for the game. And it's nice because you could do like the person who killed the most, you could do the person who like died valiantly, sort of saving their comrades or whatever. And it's got really nice sort of storytelling capacity to it. But what's also so cool is the stuff that's introduced in the expansions. Like in North Africa, you have the vehicles and you can get in and out of vehicles. You can steal enemy vehicles. That's you can do all sorts of different stuff. And the objectives are interesting. Like you get a sabotage mechanic where you need to go and blow up Italian oil refineries or whatever it is. And if you're the Italians, you're trying to kind of defend them. And the way they've kind of changed the objectives and the gameplay for the different locations is really, really cool. Yeah, I think it's a great game. It can be surprisingly quick as well. It's when people hear war game, they think 3-4 hours.
Yeah, long term game. Yeah, tabletop, that kind of thing.
But this is definitely one you can play a few scenarios of in an evening. I know we've played it 4-player once before. I normally prefer to do 2-player on it. 4 was quite cool though, that mechanic where one of you's kind of the commander or general or whatever, and they go first and they get to do certain things that the other one can't. But the team-based thing seemed quite cool. And I know it was like me and Jodie versus you and Jazz, and you were having to kind of communicate on, okay, I can do X, Y, and Z, but what about you?
Yes.
And, I'm going to go down this way and you go down that one and stuff. And I think it's just a really admirable thing they've done, the designers, in terms of the effort, the time, the research they've put into it. The components are really nice. I get the criticism, and I think that's something you're going to bring up.
Literally on the edge of the microphone. Yeah, I think the first time you introduced me to it, I was a bit, because having played Memoir 44, it felt, I don't know, it just felt more realistic. But I don't know, there was an element to it that I was just thinking, oh, this is a bit disappointing. I want to play a war game, it is that element of, you thinking this is going to be very different, and it turned out really fun. And I think the girls enjoyed it as well, which is very unusual to get the girls involved in a war game essentially. But it was, and the playing the 4-player was interesting with the communication element. But I think, like you, I think I enjoy playing more one-on-one in that scenario.
Yeah, and I think part of it, the enjoyment as well, just comes from the, like, I suppose the tactical decisions you have to make based on deck building.
Yeah.
In terms of not just, I've only got one card for my tank in my deck. It's not doing much, so I need to get more of those in there so I can mobilise them better.
Yeah.
Or, hang on, I've got this squad of infantry holding down the objective, and he's got a sniper 1 hex away.
Yeah.
He's played him a minute ago and missed, but he's just picked up 3.
Yes.
Like, that guy's going to start coming at me in a minute, so I need to think about
ahead.
that. Yeah, and so I'd say the Undaunted series as a whole, most of my experiences with Normandy and North Africa, but I've enjoyed what I've played. Clearly to have it in my top 5.
I enjoyed it, I think, more than I did Memoir 44 in the end, and that's mainly because you just kept kicking my ass at that game. Repeatedly. We played that a lot on, certainly on Board Game Arena during COVID. We played that a lot. So yeah, no, Undaunted sits higher in my list for war games, definitely. So, yeah, I very much enjoyed it. I expected to see Grizzled on your list. It is Grizzled, isn't it? That's another.
It's not a deck builder.
Is that not a deck builder? Why did I think that was a deck builder? We've only played that once, but that was fun.
That's got more the mind sort of energy in terms of playing the right card. Right time.
And okay, that was interesting because I thought the whole naming of things came into Grizzled as well, but that I've clearly got a poor memory when it comes to.
There is names.
There is, yeah. I didn't know if it was related to actual.
That, to be fair, that might be the one I was thinking of in terms of them naming it after their sort of family. I
think it was. That's actually what made me think of Grizzled.
Yeah,
which is a really fun game.
Yeah.
An honourable mention there at the end, even though it's not a deck builder.
We'll find room somewhere.
Yeah, definitely to speak about Grizzled. Well, so just to conclude there and go over my list of games were the classic Dominion, the Daring Adventures of Moonrakers, the Quest for El Dorado. We had then Legacy Encounters, an alien deck building game, and Star Realms. Nice. Yourself?
Yeah, I had Harry Potter, the deck building game, Imperium Classics. I also had the Quest for El Dorado, Lost Ruins of Arnak, and the Undaunted series.
Amazing. Okay, well, thank you very much for listening. Today we explored the exciting worlds of deck building games, and if you're a seasoned strategist or a newcomer to the genre, then there's lots of games, deck building games out there to explore. I'd love to know what you guys listening, what your favourite deck builders are. So please get in touch. As I said before, our email is mel@beargames.co.uk. Tune in next time for more board game adventures with the Little Bear Game Show. And until then, shuffle your decks and, your strategies to be sound. Happy gaming.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Before you leave, you must know you are beloved. Before you leave, remember I was with